It's a Red River showdown to see who claims the #1 spot in our 2019 Big 12 head coaching rankings. Will it be Oklahoma's Lincoln Riley or Texas's Tom Herman? Find out right here on the Gridiron Expert. And it's Lincoln Riley who claims our #1 spot right over his rival Tom Herman at Texas. And this one was almost a no-brainer, even though the margin was fairly close between Riley and Herman. But Lincoln Riley is 24-4 during his 2 seasons at Oklahoma. He's made back-to-back college football playoff appearances and has produced back-to-back Heisman Trophy winners. He's also won back-to-back Big 12 titles. Oklahoma has been one of the most dominant teams in all of college football the past 2 years under Lincoln Riley, and the offensive production of the Sooners has been off the charts since Lincoln Riley took over, not only as offensive coordinator, but certainly as he took over as head coach. So only 4 losses, 2 of those coming in the college football playoffs, so only 2 regular season losses over the past 2 years. Riley claims the #1 spot over Tom Herman, not only as the best coach in the Big 12, but one of the best coaches, I think, in the entire nation. As we mentioned, right below him is Tom Herman, who is above some of the veterans of the Big 12, such as Gary Patterson and Mike Gundy. But Herman deserves this ranking because he is 39-14 overall and has quickly revived a Texas program that was struggling and has struggled pretty much since Mack Brown left the program. He is 17-10 during his time at Texas, has won back-to-back bowl games, won the Texas Bowl over Missouri, and then annihilated Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Even though that score looked somewhat close, that game Texas controlled the entire time, so it was not as close as the score indicated. 2017 was the first winning season for Texas since 2013. Tom Herman gets all the credit for that. He also brought Texas their first 10-win season last year, their first since 2009. So as I mentioned, Tom Herman has quickly revived this Texas program. This year, going into 2019, he has Texas lined up as a Big 12 title contender, the biggest threat to them obviously being Oklahoma. He also has Texas lined up to be a potential college football playoff contender. A lot of people have them as potential dark horses. Some people are giving them at least a 20% chance to even make the college football playoff, which is pretty high odds if you ask me. So Tom Herman doing a phenomenal job down in Austin. This date against Oklahoma in the regular season is going to be huge, determining who's going to make the Big 12 championship game, and they even have a chance to square off again, much like they did last year in a rematch. Oklahoma got their revenge. Can Texas win both of those games this year? We'll have to wait and find out, but Tom Herman doing a phenomenal job with the Longhorns. Number 3, as we mentioned, one of the biggest veterans of the Big 12, Gary Patterson, who has been with TCU since the year 2000, is 167-63 overall in his career. That is a 72.6% winning percentage. So a phenomenal jump that Patterson has done at TCU. And as we've mentioned, guys, when we're looking at these rankings, we're not basing these rankings solely on the production that happened last year in 2018. Last year does play a role, but we're also looking at track record, the coach's success over the course of their entire career. We're also looking at the upward trend. Is there an upside to these coaches? Does the program look like it's going in the right direction, or does it look like it's slowly declining? A lot of those factors come into play here. Patterson deserves to be at number 3, though, because his programs rarely decline. Now, there have been some disappointing years at TCU, but one thing about Gary Patterson that I have learned is that you just can never count him out. He is usually extremely consistent with TCU, and he kind of is you don't really know what to expect. Listen to these stats. 2015, TCU went 11-2. 2016, they went 6-7. 2017, they went 11-3. And last year, 2018, they went 7-6. So if this pattern stays the same, TCU is due for a very big year this year, potentially another 10 or 11 win season to make them contenders in the Big 12. And that's one thing. Even if TCU struggles one year, you never want to count them out the next year because Gary Patterson always has his teams ready. He's also extremely good in the postseason, 11-6 in bowl games during his time with TCU. So Patterson certainly deserves to be in our top 3 and in the upper echelon of Big 12 coaches. Number 4, Matt Campbell, who has not, once again, been in the league as long as, say, Mike Gundy, but like Tom Herman, has revived a struggling Iowa State program. He's just right at 500 during his time at Iowa State, 19-19. He's brought Iowa State back-to-back 8-5 seasons, which is really something to rejoice about for Cyclones fans, considering the struggles that they had faced with Paul Rose and previous coaches before that. Before Matt Campbell came around, Iowa State had not been to a bowl game since 2012, so it would have been a pretty long bowl drought for them, and really Iowa State had not been competitive in the Big 12. Every now and then they would pull off an upset here and there, but they have not been as competitive they were not as competitive compared to the times that Matt Campbell has been here. He got them as high as number 14. He's won back-to-back Big 12 Coach of the Year awards. He is the right man for the job, and if he sticks around at Iowa State, he's going to once again make them very, very relevant and could be a potential dark horse to win the Big 12 this year. They were in the hunt to make the title game up until the very end of last season, and in my opinion, if you're ranking the top 3 teams in the Big 12 right now, it is Oklahoma, Texas, and Iowa State. Those are the top 3 teams. Iowa State, Oklahoma, Texas, and even TCU need to be very cautious of the Cyclones this year because Matt Campbell has them going in the right direction and has been doing some phenomenal things with the Cyclone squad. Number 5, right at the halfway point of the Big 12, we have Mike Gundy. Some people may say he needs to be a little bit higher. The problem with Mike Gundy is, yes, he's been consistent, but he has really been unable to win some of the big games. You know, there have been times that Oklahoma State has been in a position and had the talent to make the college football playoff, to win the Big 12, and they just haven't been able to do that. But regardless, Gundy is 121-59 in his career, so a very, very solid record. He's had 6 double-digit win seasons during his time at Oklahoma State, and that includes 3 straight at least 10-win seasons from 2015 to 2017. So one thing, kind of like Gary Patterson, as I mentioned, Mike Gundy is consistent. Last year was not the best year for them. They went 7-6 last year, even though they did win the Liberty Bowl over Missouri. That was kind of a mini upset there over a former Big 12 rival. But nonetheless, Mike Gundy usually has his Oklahoma State squad in contention. And even when they have a bad year, when they go like 6-6 or something like that, they are usually able to get a signature win, much like last year's win over Texas. Like Gary Patterson, you never want to count out Mike Gundy and the Cowboys. Number 6, a familiar face in the world of college football, Les Miles. Now, some people, once again, may say that Les Miles should be higher because of his track record. But let's keep in mind that Miles hasn't been coaching for about 3 years now. He got fired and let go 4 games into the 2016 season at LSU. But during his time at LSU, for 12 years, he was 114-34. He won at least 8 games every year at LSU and won a national championship during the 2007 season. They shouldn't have gotten there. They were a 2-loss team, but regardless, they still won that national title over Ohio State. Les Miles is one of the better head coaches in the Big 12, and is really one underrated coach across the nation. We've kind of forgot about his name because he's been out of the game for so long and because of the way things ended at LSU. But I still think he's a very solid coach. Now, my only concern with him being at Kansas is the Big 12 is an offense conference. They are, high-flying, a lot of points, a lot of offense, and Les Miles never really had that at LSU. He was known for his defense. Now, that's going to bode Kansas well. If you have a defense that can stop these high-flying offenses in the Big 12, things are going to be looking good for you. But Les Miles has to develop an offense that will fit well in the Big 12 so he'll be able to compete. He is here at Kansas to revive, once again, a struggling program. He is the right man for that job. I don't think he'll go bowling in year 1, but I do think he can get there in year 2 or year 3. A phenomenal hire for the Jayhawks. He comes in at number 6 just because he's been out of the coaching game for so long, but I still think he has plenty of time and room to move up into the top 5 of Big 12 coaches. Then we hit the bottom kind of half here. Matt Rule coming in at number 7. He's below 500 in his career, 36-40 overall. But what he did last year with Baylor, the fact that he transformed a 1-11 team in his first year in Waco and took them to 7-6 in a win in the Texas Bowl, a game that I thought was the best bowl game of the 2018-2019 postseason. He has Baylor going in the right direction. He has them trending in the right direction. Some people even have them as being a pretty major threat in the Big 12 in 2019. I don't know if I'm going to go that far yet, but we have to know when you bring in a new head coach, you have to give them time. You have to give them time to bring in their players, to implement their style of play, their style of offense and defense, and see how things are going to shape up here. Baylor fans have been patient with Matt Rule. I think in the end, he's the right man for the job. It's a completely different style from what Baylor fans were used to under Art Briles, but he's getting them in the right direction. It would not surprise me to see Baylor win 7 regular season games this year, maybe even 8 games. He's trending in the right direction, and that gets him above 3 first-year head coaches here in Matt Wells, Neil Brown, and Chris Klieman. I'm going to start with number 8, Matt Wells, who is going to be taking over for Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech. He comes in at number 8, and he had a phenomenal run at Utah State. Did some great things with the Aggies there. Had a very good style of offense there. Now, the thing is, it's a different style of offense than what Big 12 teams are used to, and especially what Texas Tech fans are used to. Tech fans were used to run the air raid under Cliff Kingsbury. Well, Matt Wells is going to come in and kind of run a more run-based offense, which is usually not something that you see in the Big 12, but it worked for him at Utah State. And keep in mind, just because they were run-based at Utah State didn't mean they didn't throw the ball. He had a very talented quarterback who will be there in 2019 in Jordan Love, one of the better Group of 5 quarterbacks, and some even have him as one of the better quarterbacks in the entire nation. He also comes in after a run at Utah State, comes in with a very solid defensive mind and knows how to coach up a defense. And like Les Miles, if he can implement that style at Texas Tech, it could bode them well, because if you can play defense in the Big 12, you have a chance to win a pretty good amount of games, because most of these guys do not know how to play defense. So Matt Wells coming in at number 8 for this reason, because of he's been a new head coach, and we're curious to see how this all plays out with his new style in the Big 12. New head coaches are tough to rank sometimes, because even if they have a decent track record, sometimes you don't want to rank them too high. And this is not to say that any of these coaches are bad by any means whatsoever. Most of these coaches are very talented, and I have faith in the majority of them. But someone's got to be last, and someone's got to be second to last, and so forth and so on. It's just the way the rankings shape up. Coming in at second to last, number 9, Neil Brown, coming over from Troy. He went 31-8 in his final 3 years at Troy, and that included big-time wins, like a win at LSU in Death Valley and a win at Nebraska, a very difficult place to play there. In those 3 years, he also won 3 bowl games with the Trojans. So a very impressive run for Neil Brown at Troy. He knows how to coach an offense. We saw that during his time there. Why is he coming at number 9, though? Is because we talk about that upside or that downside. West Virginia is a very difficult place to not only coach, win, it's also a difficult place to recruit. Can Neil Brown take that style of play and the success that he had at Troy and do it at West Virginia, who just lost Dana Holgorsen, their pretty decent head coach, to a Group of 5 school in Houston? I know he had ties there, but still, that's a pretty difficult thing to do, to take away a Power 5 coach and bring him to your Group of 5 school. Neil Brown comes in at number 9 here. I think he has a lot of upside for West Virginia, but I don't think they're going to get that success right off the bat. And then number 10, we have Chris Klieman. Why has he come in at 10th despite going 69-6 and winning 4 national championships at North Dakota State from the FCS? Well, I just said it. It's because he's from the FCS. His time at North Dakota State was phenomenal. The run there. He won all of those games and 4 national championships in just 5 years with the Bison. Came over into the Division I, or came over into the FBS, beat teams like Kansas State, beat teams like Iowa, gave other teams some scares. North Dakota State was a team from the FCS that you never wanted to face, and you still really don't want to. Developed a phenomenal quarterback in Carson Wentz, the number 2 pick in the NFL draft, and now a star for the Philadelphia Eagles if he can stay healthy. Despite all of that, Chris Klieman comes in at number 10 because the transition from the FCS to the FBS is still a pretty major transition and a tough thing to do. I don't think he's going to have immediate success at Kansas State. He also has major shoes to fill. You're filling in for the legendary Bill Snyder, the fan favorite and legend at Kansas State that did so much for that Wildcats program. Klieman, I think, can be the right man for the job. He has a good relationship with their AD at Kansas State. So I think there is upside here, but it's going to take at least a year or two, and Kansas State fans have to be prepared for that. That's why he comes in at number 10. That's why he's not 9 or 8, maybe even 7. While his track record at North Dakota State was impressive, there was a major talent gap and a major transition from the FCS to the FBS, and that's why Klieman comes in at number 10 in our head coaching rankings for the Big 12. So there you have it, your top 10 coaches, all of your coaches ranked from the Big 12. We've already done the SEC. Now we've done the Big 12. We still have the Big 10, the ACC, and the Pac-12, and you're not going to want to miss any of those. Do you agree with these rankings? If you do, let us know. If you don't, leave your top 10 rankings below in the comments. We want to hear from you guys. We want to get some discussion going on these rankings. Regardless, with 4 new head coaches, with 40% of the Big 12 being new head coaches, it's going to be a fun year for the conference, and I certainly can't wait to see how it all shapes out. So as always, thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time here on The Gridiron Expert.